Can everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At our board meetings, we like to start with our district's mission and vision. Our mission is to create a culture of academic excellence through inclusive and innovative learning opportunities for the whole child. And our vision is to empower all learners to reach their full potential in a globally competitive world. Next item on our agenda, we would like to take a moment of silence for Mark Harden, Sycamore Community Schools Athletic Director. Mr. Lewis would like to say a few words before we begin.
Yeah, it's been a very difficult couple of weeks for us here at Sycamore, and losing a beloved colleague, a friend, someone that cared deeply about students and helped them achieve so much on and off the field. Seeing some of the pictures and watching some of the memories of Mr. Harden and attending his visitation and funeral. One of the really great things is hearing so many positive things about someone, and what the impact that they've had on people. So I appreciate the support of the entire community, the Sycamore family, especially towards the Harden family. Mark lost a son a couple of years ago to cerebral palsy. And, I've been saying this to a lot of people is one of the things, and I heard his son say it today, one of the things that gives us joy is knowing that he's reunited with his son, Bryce. So we would ask for a moment of silence in his memory and appreciate that.
Thank you, everyone. First item on our agenda this evening is the approval of the agenda. Could I please get a motion and a second? So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. James, for your motion, and thank you, Mr. Harris, for your second. Mrs. Logan, please call the roll.
Dr. James,
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Mr. Ballard.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye. The next item is the approval of the minutes. Can I please get a motion and a second for the minutes?
So moved.
Second. Thank you, Mr. Ballant, for your motion, and thank you, Dr. James, for your second. Does anyone have any additions, comments, edits? Mrs. Logan, please call the roll.
Mr. Ballard.
Aye.
Dr. James.
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye. The next item is public participation. We have public participation this evening, Mrs. Logan. Participants are called upon to speak at this section.
So I have been contacted by 4 different individuals for public comment that is not related to an agenda topic. And so I can call their names. And then we also have one individual who did reach out and is also here and has filled out a form, Clint Wooldridge, who would like to comment later on the agenda topic, which is relative to the boundary changes. So the first person that I have on my list is Jessica Conway. Hi, Jessica.
Hi.
And each person is limited to 3 minutes. And so I will time, but and if you don't take all that time, it's fine.
Do I just sit here?
You can sit there, you
Oh,
can stand
I'll sit
up.
here. It's nice to meet you all. I feel so formal. I feel like I should have dressed up. Okay. Good evening and thank you for having us today. My name is Jessica Conway and I'm here to discuss concerns regarding the displacement of half-day kindergarten programs at Mapledale and Sims Elementaries. I currently have a child in first grade at Mapledale and an upcoming kindergartner has been placed in PM kindergarten at Montgomery this fall. As a parent, I feel like the option to make the best decision for my child has been removed, which would be half-day at her home school with her sister ideally. My issues with the current situation are as follows. I do not feel separating families and students from their home school, peers, and siblings during their first year of formal schooling is ideal. There are potential logistical implications for families with students in two different schools, and in some cases who have two different students dismissed from two different schools at the same time. Some children with IEPs may have to change care teams across 3 different schools in 3 years, moving from pre-K to first grade. Some families may not have the financial resources to send their child to their neighborhood school. Some parents may prefer the half-day program because their child has special needs or developmental issues, and those children may have a harder time with transitions. Sycamore currently offers free half-day kindergarten with the option for tuition-based full day. I question if it is ethical to prioritize meeting the needs of tuition-paying students at the expense of the students attending school for free. Since the half-day class was placed at Blue Ash, and it's my understanding the numbers at each school weren't too far off, I'm wondering if a part-time teacher or shared teacher between schools could mitigate the issue with the upcoming school year. I wonder if this is in line with our mission, our values, and our current strategic plans. Kindergarten registration is likely the first interaction most families have with the district. I feel there may be other ways that the kindergarten could be improved to support both half-day and full-day parents who I also care about, such as a more timely notification of placement into a program, providing resources to parents for before and after-school programs and transportation when needed, and even the consideration for a Sycamore-sponsored on-site enrichment program for those placed in half-day but need full-day. These are all things that are done at other leading local school districts. The pressing issue today, however, is reinstating the half-day programs at each school. I understand there are many complexities to consider and a fiscal responsibility to uphold. However, by prioritizing access to free kindergarten at each schools and minimizing displacement of students from their home schools, I believe Sycamore can demonstrate a commitment to equity and community engagement and safeguard its reputation as an inclusive school district. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. You don't typically comment, so we're gonna let everyone speak first, if that would be okay, and then perhaps our.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, the next person I have on my list is Sarah Gilday.
That's me. Hi, Sarah. And I have a letter as well. It's on behalf of my husband and I, who is lurking. My husband and I are here today to discuss the kindergarten registration process. We are becoming increasingly concerned that enrollment in neighborhood elementary schools is not being distributed in a way that promotes equity. When speaking to other parents who chose the half-day program, the vast majority of them did so for one of two reasons. One, they felt their child was not developmentally ready for full-day kindergarten. Or two, they could not afford the full-day program. We are concerned that moving the half-day program out of Mapledale and other neighborhood schools disproportionately affects students who already face existing challenges. Students who are not developmentally ready for a full-day program are going to be the least likely to thrive in the setting of multiple school transitions. This is particularly true if sending them somewhere other than their neighborhood school results in them being separated from similarly aged siblings. If students were enrolled in a half-day program because their family was unable to afford full-day tuition, for families who have more than one elementary school-age child, the logistical hardships of having multiple student drop-offs, pickups, and/or bus times falls disproportionately on families who may already be at an economic disadvantage relative to some of their peers. The extra burden placed on these families cannot be ignored. We feel that Sycamore has a moral obligation to offer the same opportunities to all children, regardless of their economic status or developmental needs. From a developmental standpoint, keeping kids at their neighborhood school should be an absolute priority. Sycamore community schools are public, thus the ability to enroll your child at your neighborhood school should not depend on your ability to pay to do so, nor should it be hindered by your child's developmental needs. This is the second year in a row that half-day children have been displaced from their neighborhood schools to accommodate tuition-based students. The parents you see here are part of a larger group of frustrated parents that's going to continue to grow each year if the district does not enact change to improve access for all students to their neighborhood schools. We appreciate your time and the opportunity to voice our concerns, and we look forward to working with you to make Sycamore Elementary Schools a more equitable environment for all.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the next person I have is Katie Den.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
My oldest child is in second grade at Mapledale and my middle child starts kindergarten this fall. My kids, like most, have a love-hate relationship. But one thing they can agree on is that they want to be together at school while able. When my son heard that he was assigned to Montgomery, his excitement for schools started fading. And he told me he wasn't going to school My daughter was upset because she wanted to help guide him through the hallways, navigate the bus, and be his liaison at school. Selfishly, I want the same things for them. However, my overall aggravation lies with the transparency and the continued emphasis on numbers and money instead of the student-centered approach. On the Sycamore District's website, it reads, quote, Sycamore offers half-day kindergarten in AM and PM sessions. A tuition-based full-day option is also available to each of our elementary schools because of the demand. Families who are interested in full-day kindergarten are entered into a lottery, end quote. One area of concern is the use of the term lottery in the full-day kindergarten enrollment. While the intent may be to ensure fairness based on prior year's numbers, the current process resulted in disparities for non-tuition paying families, and the lottery system remains unclear to the community. This process could be more transparently detailed on the district website. There are other top performing districts who set the example by offering comprehensive details about their kindergarten programs, such as dates for parents, information on bridge programs for daycare or in-school care, and clear guidelines regarding enrollment priority, especially for students with siblings in the district. Secondly, in the welcome email we received, there were no details given about how the class structure, such as class size. There are 3 elementary schools housed at Montgomery now. The number of kids from their home school, the gender ratio, only reassurance that they are there with excellent teachers, which wasn't a concern of ours to begin with. These are decisions the district considers when advancing throughout elementary years, but not disclosed to parents facing the decision whether to keep them displaced or pay the $4,000 to return them to their home school and change to full day. The Sycamore mission statement states, quote, create a culture of academic excellence through an inclusive and innovative learning opportunity for the whole child, end quote. But this is not a holistic approach for education. Parents have chosen half day due to it being the best fit for their child and family for a variety of reasons. The child may not be socially or emotionally ready for full day. Another school-age child, the homeschool, staying at the same school from kindergarten into first grade may help lessen anxiety. It may be logistics of getting 2 children from different district elementary schools at the same time, among others. Displacing children without regard for their well-being contradicts the principle of teaching to the whole child.
Were you almost?
Were you almost finished? You
Go
can go
ahead.
ahead.
Please finish.
Sorry, a long day. There are parents whose children are in kindergarten this year and they were displaced or forced to pay to stay at their home school and are still unhappy. And several parents who have a child starting kindergarten fall of 2025 and have concerns that they will also be displaced. The issue is not going anywhere and will continue to build momentum. I urge the school board to consider the benefits of half-day kindergarten and explore ways to improve transparency, communication, and the student-centered approach.
Thank you.
The last person I have on my list is Maggie Clevenger.
That's me. My name is Maggie Clevenger. I'm speaking tonight on the non-agenda issue of having half-day kindergarten being removed from our home schools, like everybody else here. I know that the other parents are touching on the crucial impacts this has on the well-being of our children in regards to switching schools so young, lacking support from their older siblings, and many more things. So instead, I want to touch on how this issue creates a new impossibility for my family. So currently, the bus doesn't drop off my first grader until 4:48 p.m. My youngest, who's going to be in half-day kindergarten next year, has been on the same gymnastics team for the past year. They meet every Tuesday at 4:45. This is the only time available for that gymnastics team. And this is like her favorite thing that she does. So in order for us to get to gymnastics, I pick up my first grader from school because we have to leave directly from the school to make it to gymnastics on time. Next year, with my kindergartner being in a different school than my first grader, she'll be a second grader, I won't be able to do that anymore. If I have to go pick up her and then pick up my other daughter, I've got to go to 2 different schools that end at the same time. If I have to try to wait for the bus, we miss gymnastics. So by splitting them up, I'm not going to be able to make it. I'm either going to have to make my child give up her gymnastics, or I'm going to have to cut back on their schooling time for one of them to pick them up before the day ends. which is obviously very frustrating. This is just one very specific example of how scheduling for this will continue to be an issue for my family, who is very fortunate to have a stay-at-home parent. What about the families with single parents or two working parents that now have to shuffle extracurricular activities and bus times for two different schools that they didn't anticipate? I'm also concerned about attempting to attend the extra activities associated with each school, such as school picnics, skate parties, math nights, other things like that that we do for Mapledale that now we're gonna have to find the time for Montgomery Elementary as well. This isn't an issue we went into knowingly. We chose to move into this district, into this neighborhood school, believing that our children would be attending school together. While I know that these are hard decisions to make, I firmly believe that the wrong one has been made unintentionally without fully understanding the impacts this will have on the families. I hope that some solution can be found to remedy the situation, and I hope that there is much more transparency in the future so that other families won't feel as blindsided as ours has. I appreciate your time and attention on this issue.
Thank you very much for speaking with the board. We don't typically comment when there's public participation. It's not an item on our agenda. So we want to hear from you and you're giving us your feedback and we really appreciate that. Mr. Lewis.
Yeah, I would
don't
just
know
say
if
thank you
sometimes-
for being here to speak, and I want you to know as parents, we don't take these decisions lightly, and we certainly, I don't go into it looking to harm students or families or, gymnastics or anything like that. We truly try to do the best for the most when we're making tough decisions. And so hearing you, and we were already going to do this before you came to the board meeting. Mr. Lovell shared your concerns from your meetings with him. And we're always willing to go back and look and see what other options exist. We're always willing to present options to the board that might add additional costs to the budget, but please know and understand that, we work within parameters of a budget and try to do our best to stay under that. As a taxpayer of the district, I appreciate that as well. So it's not that we want to single out your children or make them feel like they're not included in their home schools. It simply becomes, when you look at the significant number of students that are not selecting half day, it makes it very hard to stay within our current model, which is, we typically would run a class with 22 students. And when you're talking about Mapledale, there's less than, I think we're in the teens right now, like low teens of the number of students that have selected half day. But your comments give us a chance to go back and look and see what other options might exist. Classroom space also becomes an issue because if I heard someone mention, running a schedule where you share teachers. That would be really ideal. I wish we could do that, but the teachers have to have a lunch period and a break period in between sessions, and our current elementary schedule wouldn't allow that travel time from one elementary to another, because that would be a simple solution. So let us get creative. Let us take a look. The good thing is we have plenty of time. I will tell you the impetus for getting that information out is kindergarten registration ends. We look at the numbers and we try to be as transparent as possible of telling you if it were to sit as currently as it was, this is the decision that we would have to make based on all those factors. So give us an opportunity to take a look, and certainly if we find something that we think we can make a change to, we will be happy to reach out and have another meeting with you and have that discussion. But glad your voices are heard. This is what we desire all the time from our community, is to hear when you're not happy about something. We like to hear when you're happy about something. I do appreciate that.
Thank you very much. Thank you. The next item, a very important item on our agenda, is the Splash Elementary Principal, Miss Natalie. Now, hopefully I'm going to say this right. Jimenez?
Jimenez, in Spanish to J is H.
Okay.
Throws everybody off. So thank you for giving me the opportunity tonight. It's wonderful to meet all of you. I am beyond humbled to serve as the Blue Ash principal next year. I knew when I met Mr. Lewis and the dynamic leaders that you have at this table that this is where I wanted to continue my educational career. So I look forward to working with you. I look forward to working with all of the wonderful staff members I've met throughout the process and continuing to serve the excellence that I know Blue Ash Elementary has done for your community. So thank you for the opportunity to meet you guys tonight.
And so let me give you a little bit of background. So Mrs. Jimenez went through a rigorous multi-round process.
Yes.
I think her comments were, "Yeah, this was really an intense process." So we definitely make people earn the right to be here and serve our students. So it was a 3-round process. The first round was a screening round. The second round was a large building round, right?
Very large.
Lots of teachers involved. I think we had upwards of 11 teachers sitting on that committee, office staff member, and then several of our district office team members. And then the third round, I promised her it would be smaller, but it didn't end up being smaller because I felt like we still needed that teacher voice. So 2 of the teachers came back along with other building principals from the district and other district leaders. So once we got through the 3 rounds, it was clear to our team that Mrs. Jimenez was the right choice to lead Blue Ash Elementary. So she wasn't done then yet. We had one more round, which was I wanted her to spend, and this came from the Blue Ash Elementary staff. They wanted to have the recommended candidate come spend kind of a half day with us. So unfortunately, that was in the midst of tragedy that we had already scheduled her to be there. So thank you to Mrs. Wagner for, I started with Mrs. Jimenez and then had to leave her to unfortunately come do media with news stations about our tragic loss. So she spent plenty of time at the school. And the one thing I learned, I'll say if we had a learning experience, it was like, what do we say to people about what is she doing? So, you know, because it was still in that mode of we're interviewing, but so kids were like, are you our new principal? So we learned something from that process. So thank you for being our trial person to get us through that process. So she is coming to us from Lakota Local Schools. She was at a Heritage Early Childhood. Prior to that, she was in Illinois, what I would consider a very similar school district to Sycamore Community Schools. So she has been an administrator for upwards of.
This will be my 10th year.
Okay, so I was gonna say 9, but close. So, and we're excited to have her and help us lead through the next many years of Blue Ash Elementary. So. And we'll be seeking your approval on the very next item. So.
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you. We look forward to working with you. So can I get a motion? Should I go ahead and?
Yes.
Do this?
Yep.
Okay. Can I please get a motion for the approval of the administrative position for Mrs. Natalie Jimenez?
I move. Second.
Mr. Gallant for your motion. Thank you, Mr. Harris, for a second. Mrs. Logan, please call the roll.
Mr. Vallant,
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Dr. James.
Aye. Aye.
Oh. Well.
I know.
All right, the next item on our agenda is the boundary realignment discussion. So we will begin with a discussion and then we will have a comment, I believe. Is that how we?
Yeah.
Is that the right?
So just to quickly, I don't think we need to belabor this point because we've done it a couple of times. So if you can advance to the next slide. We've talked about these things before. This is an old, it shouldn't say redistricting discussion, just skip to the next slide. That was an old slide, but why are we doing this? We need to balance the elementaries from a just numbers standpoint. When we look at our schools, there, one school in particular is getting a little bit overcrowded and we need to balance them out. So we've gone over this a couple of times. Sims Elementary is that elementary that's being a little bit overcrowded. And then you can see just in the midst of all the yellow, which all the yellow is Mapledale Elementary, there's a little sliver of green that goes to Montgomery Elementary. And so, and we'll address that and why that's in there and then why we're asking that to not be in there. So the next slide, please. So this is Harper's Point Apartments. It's part of Sims Elementary School. So just for your reference, that's one of the major areas that we're talking about. Next slide. And you can see the total enrollment at Harper's Point on the first column there with the number of students over the next 5 years that would be in elementary school, ranging from 59 to 69 students. You can see that impact on Sims Elementary when you go again across the next 5 school years, anywhere between the mid 600s, climbing up into the 700s and back down into the 600s. But, you know, realistically that, and just so that frame of reference, that is without preschool numbers embedded in there. So adding that in, you could have an elementary school close to 800 with those numbers added in if we did nothing. Then you can go back one slide real quick, and then you can see on the last part, Montgomery Elementary, if we did nothing, would decline to a point that would fall below 500. And that is not necessarily a good thing for our elementary schools. And why is that? If you look at the area of Montgomery Elementary, if you look at the attendance area, you look at the housing in that area, people aren't moving. They are staying put in that area and their kids have already advanced out of elementary age. So that causes a decline in the enrollment in that attendance area. So all of this was why we started pursuing boundary realignment to balance our elementary schools. So next slide, please. The other thing that we looked at is we always pay attention to our diversity. Sims Elementary has the most diversity. It has more diversity in its school than the other 3 elementaries combined. So there is a need to, when we went through our enrollment study, which we're going to go over tonight, there is a need and there was a recommendation that we are out of balance within the district. So Harper's Point certainly is a very diverse community and would certainly help the diversity of Montgomery Elementary, which is one of our less diverse buildings in the district. Next slide, please. And so you can see again, the Harper's Point impact, the numbers are there. And then if we put in the projection based on boundary realignment, you can see that it fairly equally balances the 2 elementary schools, mind you, without preschool still. But when you look at that final year, and that's what we're looking at is the impact over the course of those 5 years, it really provides significant balance and stability to our 2 elementary schools. And then this is just an interesting slide that came out of our enrollment study. When you look at our the diversity across our district, it was surprising to us as we went through the process to find out that Montgomery used to be the least diverse elementary school in the district. It is now Mapledale Elementary School is the least diverse elementary school in the district. So based on that fact, way before my time, at some point, a portion of Hazelwood was moved to Montgomery Elementary. And if you go back, Mr. Long, if you go back all the way to the first slide real quick, and then we'll advance back, you can see why that makes no sense with the boundary of Mapledale all around that area. From a geographic standpoint, from a busing standpoint, it doesn't make any sense to have that done, especially when Mapledale Elementary is now the least diverse elementary school in the district. So moving that back to Mapledale Elementary makes a lot of sense from a geographic standpoint. One more slide movement. So what are our recommendations? My recommendation would be for the board to approve the boundary realignment plan, but with one caveat that we talked about at the last meeting. I would request that the board allow students and families that are currently enrolled in the impacted school to be able to make that decision to stay in that school until they exit fourth grade, understanding that transportation will not be provided by Sycamore. Because we won't have buses going into those areas that obviously we've realigned to a different boundary. We have a process for that. The other thing I would say, though, is families do have to understand that if students are enrolled after this school year or not currently in that school, they would be in the new realigned boundaries. And even if you have a student in second grade and a preschool student, if your preschool student is not enrolled, they're not grandfathered in to be able to go to the same school just because the older sibling stayed. So those are decisions that families have to make as they work through it. It would be logistically a nightmare for us to continue to track that. And it causes the boundary realignment to take numerous years to take effect. So I certainly want our families that we have heard from that are impacted by this to be able to have that option. This is a similar option we have approved at least twice in the past. So I do believe that, again, we've set a precedence of approving it, and I would request that we add that caveat into this boundary realignment as well. So happy to answer any questions before entertaining any additional comments.
Before we move to our public comment, does any of the board members have anything you'd like to ask or you'd like to weigh in on? Or would you like to wait for a public comment?
Well, I just said one thing, and I know this is, and it's kind of reiterating what Chad said earlier, Mr. Lewis said earlier, was the fact that we understand how this personally affects families. And I think sometimes that's a thing that a lot of people miss when you do make decisions involving a large group of people. You know, you do recognize the fact that sometimes it affects individuals more than it affects the large group. So, you know, we have kept that in mind, and those decisions are difficult. Because you want everyone to be happy. And it's sad when everyone is not. So we just want everyone to know that, you know, taking those things in mind, this is the thing that we thought is the best for the most amount of people, understanding that some individuals will be more adversely affected than other individuals. So just want to make sure that people know that.
Well, Mr. Lewis, I will say that I appreciate that you have brought this to the board on multiple board meetings. It's very helpful because I think to give the community an opportunity to see the information, for us to see it and to be able to talk about it. And then to be able for you to have met with so many families individually and hear their feedback. And then to be able to come up with a suggestion about the transportation, I think that's a great way of sort of problem solving some of the issues and individualizing it for families as best we can. But I mean, this is just the reality of the district that we live in, which is an amazing district, but we're growing and it's great. But districts have to realign pretty constantly. And it is really challenging when it's your child and it's your life. It's really, really hard. And every member of this board, you know, has had or does have children, have children in the district, and we have been impacted by this as well. And we absolutely understand concerns. So I appreciate that you've taken the time to take your time on this. And thank you.
Absolutely.
And Mrs. Logan, I believe we have
We do. And so according to your policy, the way that this works is you do the motion in a second and then have any comments by the board. And then before you vote, you would entertain the comments from the community.
got, so I motion, okay. So the first thing I'm going to do, when public comment will occur, I would like to get a motion and a second for the approval of the boundary realignment.
So moved.
Second. Thank you, Mr. Ballant, for your motion, and thank you, Dr. James, for your second. Do we have any public comment?
And as long as the board.
Do I have to ask a motion for that?
Can I get?
It's just, are you done with your discussion?
Oh, yes.
It's just, are you done with your discussion?
Oh, yes.
Or would you like to add anything or?
I don't have anything to add.
I think we're ready for.
Okay.
This is.
So Mr. Wooldridge.
Thank you.
Yeah, and again, 3 minutes. I will try not to have that. Oh.
I'm so sorry.
I'm used to being cut off.
Yes.
So I just want to first start by saying thank you guys. I know that board members is kind of a selfless labor of love. So obviously you have a love for these local children in our community, and I share that love. I'm a Sycamore graduate. I would know Vice President Harris as Coach Harris High School. And I'm the owner of Slats Pub in Blue Ash. And I know I'm not gonna have any buildings named after me, but I, through sponsorships and donations and gift cards and fundraisers, I'm in the upwards of $5,000 annually to help, this school out specifically. That's, just from me personally. And I don't have an argument against the redistricting of Harper's Point. It certainly makes sense with the revolving student body there. I live on LaBelle Avenue, which is part of the little sliver, which was surprising. I just moved there a few years ago when my little daughter here, Charlotte, sweetest little thing that you have ask anyone. She started there in kindergarten. We were surprised it was Montgomery, being that it's in Blue Ash. But nevertheless, she started there, and we do appreciate the potential to continue going there with unprovided transportation. But side note of that, it seems that kind of similar to these guys, the more affluent families will be able to adjust and find ways around it, and go in to work late and work from home, et cetera. And the people that I think that are going to be harmed the most are the people the children that need the most help, single family, low income. They're already fragile. They've already established a community within their school and their teachers, and everyone knows them, and the help that they need is being provided already in a safe, comfortable environment for these students. And I feel that giving the quote unquote option of no transportation for these people really isn't an option. You go to work at 8, you come back at 5, or and you can't take them to school at 9 o'clock and pick them up at 3:45. It's really not an option, so to speak. And so if just dragging one bus from Harper's is a 5-minute sliver, and then if you take the back roads back to Montgomery, it's really, you could cut that down to probably 3 or 4 minutes of inconvenience rather than damaging the psychological well-being of a student, which even just one, it seems like it's worth it. And so it seems like a simple rerouting of one bus just to grab these kids and take them back home doesn't, it seems to be more of an inconvenience rather than, a harmful effect. I'm really passionate about it. She's in 3rd grade, or she'll be in 3rd grade in kinder 1st, 2nd. This will be her 4th year somewhere, and her teachers love her, and they don't want to see her leave. I forgot to bring all these things that her friends wrote for her to keep Charlotte at Montgomery, and there's beautiful roses. I hope you stay in our school. And and I just urge the council to reconsider the transportation part of this option. And for the people, I have a son who will be in kindergarten soon, and Mapledale's perfectly fine at that point. He has no background with the teachers, and it's not a which school is better thing. It's all the Sycamore schools are great. That's why we still live here. But to uproot some of these children, I feel is it's not right for the student body and these poor little kids up to 4th grade. So yeah, that's all I have. So thanks, guys. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Logan, can you please call the roll?
Mr. Ballant,
Aye.
Dr. James,
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye. The next item on the agenda is the enrollment study discussion.
I will do my best to cut. I did it in 30 minutes with the administrator, so that's my goal is to try to stay under 30 minutes because there are 60+ slides here that I'm not gonna go over every single slide. Mallory, are you lacking confidence in me, Ms. Bombra?
No, I just,
All right, so we're gonna skip slide, keep going. Yep, go back.
The last
to-
one.
Yeah, go back to the last one. Just one thing I wanted to say here is just, obviously, we went through an enrollment study for a reason. We want to create a 5-year plan, just like our capital improvement plan. We need a 5-year plan to really look at our enrollment. It helps us evaluate boundary realignment, which obviously we just did. And we're one of the things that Mr. Lovell and I are excited about. We think we're going to be able to create an interactive elementary attendance zone map for the public on our website that they can utilize, type in their address, and boom, tells them what elementary they go to. So we're excited about that opportunity. Mr. Long, skip that next slide. Skip that one too. So this is an important part of our equation. So how do we predict enrollment, or how do we try to predict and estimate enrollment? Obviously, our enrollment changes every single day. We get students almost every single day, or we lose students every single day. There are 3 principal forecast parameters: kindergarten enrollment, which we can get a good sense of a historical pattern of kindergarten enrollment. How do we predict our kindergarten enrollment? It's just 5-year birth rate. We look at the birth rates in our areas, predict it out 5 years. That should roughly give you what your incoming kindergarten class is for the district. Cohort survival is our graduating seniors. It's a fairly fixed and known parameter. And then net migration is the number of students registering and withdrawing. So we have a factor that we looked at of a number that goes through that process. So the enrollment forecast primarily focuses on achieving accurate assessments of the highly variable kindergarten enrollment and net migration forecast parameters. So that's how we get to the number. You can see on the next slide, these are all the different factors that could be looked at for enrollment. So obviously you can see how many different things could impact it. And then next slide is, I would say these are the ones we spend the majority of our time on. So just so that you have a picture of what that looks like. So next slide. You can skip that one because we don't need to go over that. So the next few slides, you're going to see what's called a maximum value for each metric, which means, and you'll see a couple of colors on your screen. So the maximum is red, the minimum is green. Student yield for both Sycamore and Sycamore Community Schools are relatively flat since 2010. We're starting to see an uptick in our enrollment now, but over the last handful of years, it's been relatively flat. The crude birth rate has been relatively unchanged since 2010. The total number of households has been on an increased trajectory, and you can see that on the left since 2017. Next slide. So some key takeaways: the total number of housing units has increased by 1,000 units over the last 5 years, which is a 7% increasing in total units. However, the percent of vacant housing bottomed in 2019 and has been on the rise ever since. The number of multiple bedroom housing units has been on the rise over the last 5 years. Renter occupied housing units has been relatively flat since 2011, but increasing since 2017. And then the average household size of owner occupied units is unchanged. The average house size of renter occupied housing units has declined since 2010. So all of those are factors. Next slide, Christian. The key takeaways here: population 3 years and over enrolled within the Sycamore Community Schools has hit its max value in 2021. Similarly, kindergarten and elementary school enrollment are bumping up against their highest recorded since 2010. The number of students enrolled in preschool hit a maximum in 2019. So lots of numbers on this slide. Again, red maximum, minimum green. You can see that the under 5-year-old population hit a max in 2019. These are future school-age children. You can see that the population between 10 and 19 hit minimums around 2019. This is consistent with our current enrollment with a heavy elementary group and a lower high school group. At the bottom are the generation labels corresponding to the age groups. Boomers, their children, the millennials, and their grandchildren, the Gen Alphas, are all near maximums over this time period since 2010. Conversely, post-war, World War II generation, their children, Boomers 2 and Generation X, and their grandchildren, Generation Z, are at their near minimum values over this time period. So this shows the cyclical baby boom and echo boom impacting the Sycamore enrollment. We're going to skip this slide. I love looking at this slide because it kind of shows, if you look at our enrollment, and this is where I get a little bit frustrated when people start to complain about how crowded our buildings are. We're not crowded. It's a population boom right now. If you look prior to 2000 in the late 90s, we were higher than we are now with smaller buildings. We just built new buildings with more space. E.H. Green hadn't changed at that point. E.H. Green was tiny with tiny classrooms. So we're not experiencing overcrowding. We're experiencing just a boom in enrollment that we haven't felt in a while. So it hasn't changed. Obviously, we're not back at that maximum yet. We're heading there, but we're not back there yet. So.
Can I say something really
Yeah.
quickly? I see what you're saying for us as a board, because that's important to see that, but for someone who has a child, like my son started, let's say 2004, his would have gone down and now it's going back up. So as a parent, you felt, okay, it was crowded and then it kind of wasn't so crowded and then now it's going up. So it's always clearly relative.
Yep.
Just
It's
remind
just
me-
about your experience.
It's just about your experience. I mean, yes, it could have been higher in the 90s, but we didn't have kids in the 90s.
Yep. Let's see, next slide. That's good right there. So again, I'll just say a key takeaway from this, since 2009, the percentage of economically disadvantaged students in Ohio continues a long-term trend of increasing. Whereas if you look at Sycamore, it's been a long-term decreasing. There are certainly bubbles and things that happen, but our low year, I think why that's an anomaly is because that was the year that everyone qualified for free and reduced lunch. So people just didn't fill out the application. Next slide. We'll skip that slide. A lot of business going on there. So the percent of homeless students in Sycamore is without trend, but it's roughly 1/3 of the state of Ohio. So that's key takeaway from that slide. Looking at our district versus the state of Ohio with our EL population, our English learners, key takeaway, Sycamore is increasing at a faster rate and is now at an all-time highest percentage, 8.2 of the total student body of English learners. You'll be happy to know that that's why we just posted 2.5 new EL positions for the district, because we are seeing that growth and pressure on some of our staff members that need the support, and our students need the support. Sims Elementary has more EL students than any other elementary buildings combined. All buildings are experiencing that increase. Over 25% of the Sims students enrolled are ELs.
Can I ask another question since we're on this? For English language learners, and maybe this is for Mrs. Hopkins, for children who are in elementary, let's say they're entering, because we're talking about kindergarten, is it advantageous for them to be in full day kindergarten or half day or?
Full day
When you're
kindergarten gives students most opportunities for obviously core content, but also it supports with language acquisition, interactions, learning oral language. So it certainly is extremely advantageous for our English learners in the district to be in a full day program. It's a best case scenario.
Okay.
Next slide, students with disabilities. Key takeaways here, both Sycamore and the state have similar trends. Less than 10% of the total enrollment. Additionally, this has roughly been the case since 2004 for Sycamore. Since 2014, each building has been within a similar range of 6 to 12% of the student population.
Well, sorry, since we're on that one, Miss, can I, Mrs. Spencer, can I ask the same question for you? For students in kindergarten, if they're a student with a disability, if they're, or is it just a wide range of whether they should be in half day or full day kindergarten?
Well, ideally, the more exposure to school, the better, similar to but again, parent choice in terms of what they feel is developmentally appropriate. In terms of what their child with the.
As far as like best practice in education, was that?
Full day programming, yeah.
And next slide, just part of our, study that we look at, again, they give us a multiplier based on our number of students and then consideration for, economically disadvantaged students, English language, or English learners, and also students with disability. And basically that multiplier gives you what is and basically it comes out to that Sycamore is educating the equivalent of 6,796 students. So next slide, you can see the difference in the district versus the state of Ohio and the district since the late 70s versus now. So just again, another data point. And you've seen these before, so we'll speed through here, but Sycamore, not that fast. Sycamore, just the change over the years. You can see the difference in the decades. So now you know. Sycamore middle schools, middle grades, E.H. Green Junior High and High School. You can see the change in demographic. All right, let's move to the elementaries. You just saw that, so we won't spend any more time on that because my key takeaways I've already shared with you. Alternative schooling, this slide shows the split between school-age children within Sycamore choosing public school at the district or private alternatives. Key takeaway, there's a long-term trend of school-age children choosing Sycamore. If you go to the next slide, I'm very proud of this slide. This continues to show a declining trend through today. Where now just approximately 10% of school-age children within the district boundaries are attending alternatives. That is down from, if you look back at the last slide, there were a number of students in the 90s choosing private school, 26%. So good job to our staff and individuals helping our students stay here, and hopefully we continue to provide what they need to stay here permanently. So next slide. You can see these are schools that are in different categories for us to continue to look at. We have 43, and one thing I wanted to say, go back to the last slide just real quick. The other thing I think is important is this is in a day and age where our legislators have decided to start giving vouchers that are advantageous to families to go to private school, and yet people are still choosing to stay here. So shame on our legislators, but it's for another day. So next slide, 43 chartered private and parochial school alternatives that resident Sycamore school-age children attend. Of those 43, 4 options are growing at a rate either similar or greater than the rate of growth at Sycamore's community schools. So there's the Cincinnati Classical Academy is a tuition-free alternative school located just outside our boundaries. So it is something that we keep a close eye on to see. There are only 56 Sycamore resident students currently enrolled at CCA, but that's only spread across grades K through 7. As they continue to expand, it's just something that we should monitor and keep our eye on. Next slide. Just shows the various choices that students can make. So you can see that over the course of time. And there have been recent jumps in 3 of the school choice options: site-based community school, Ed Choice Expansion Scholarship, and the John Peterson Special Needs or Autism Scholarship.
Can I ask a question? When someone chooses John Peterson or any of those scholarships, does that come out of it doesn't come out of our budgets.
So that's one of the changes that was made with the Fair School Funding Plan is that now those are directly funded and it does not take away from our funding. But just one thing I do want to mention, and I know Chad mentioned this, the increase in the vouchers that are, remember it used to be if you were like in a failing school building, you were eligible. From FY 23, we had 32 students in our school district who were receiving a voucher to go to private school. This year,
How many?
32. Any idea what it is this year?
17.
484.
Wow.
And you can see from the numbers, there's not more children going to private. It's students who have already been there.
And
So now they're funding
And is that coming, that's still not coming from us?
directly funded.
But that's the worry is that it'll flip.
Correct.
And then it'll come out of our
Something to keep an eye on.
And then what about what you were gonna say, ask a question?
No, I was just saying that it's not directly coming out of the funding for Sycamore schools.
Right.
But,
It's education funding.
right.
Correct.
Yeah, we're not. That's a good point, Dr. James.
Yes.
And Mrs. Logan, just for our community, how much funding do we get from the state?
Well, the funding that
In
we
general.
get from the state of Ohio is 10% of what the total amount that we, that it takes to educate our students. And so, in all, with the state of Ohio, we get a little over 7 million from the state of Ohio. So, yes,
Very
in a total budget of about 100 million in revenue, that's what we receive from the state. So.
Next slide, Mr. Long. Percentage of homeschool students, no significant trend here, so, and it hovers around 2%, so. Next slide. Our demographics key takeaway of the 14 non-public schools listed above, only 3 are without religious affiliation or parochial schools. 2 of those 3, Cincinnati Country Day and Seven Hills, have tuition rates that are greater than $20,000. So while the impact is relatively small, the program we were just talking about could become a significant factor to monitor over the course of our forecast period. And as we've talked about, we're going to continue to keep this forecast going every year because it is important so that we know our trends and know our data year to year instead of trying to do it every 5 to 7 to 10 years. So next slide. So real estate cycle, I'll just mention quickly Sycamore, the maximum number of property transfers, 920 occurred in 2017. The minimum was 564, which was recorded last year. Property transfers are expected to rebound in the middle of the forecast period or roughly about 2026. The existing real estate market has a huge impact on our enrollment because the district is fairly well built out. You know, there's not much growth. So. Next slide. Periods of rapidly increasing rates in our district. Sycamore experiences decreasing property transfers and vice versa. So, you know, obviously you can see just by the trend lines, you know, the experience in Sycamore versus the average mortgage rates. Again, these are just all things that are in the depth of our process, but skip that one and skip the next one. Unemployment rate, current unemployment rates are at all-time lows. It's expected that this metric will climb when the real estate cycle completes in 2026, which will impact our enrollment forecast parameters of kindergarten and net migration. So it'll be something for us to keep an eye on. Next slide. Real estate taxes, key takeaway, Sycamore Community Schools is among the lowest for comparable districts with respect to real estate taxes. Thus, it's not really considered a significant impact on our enrollment or our forecast period. Next slide. Our red areas, our neighborhoods or business districts that are in need or expected to see significant change. Some of these neighborhoods are influencing the increase in enrollment at Sycamore, but we continue to monitor them. For 23-24, there are 71 students residing in the neighborhoods at Summit Park. 47 in Daventry, and 24 in the district. So you can see those highlighted on the map. It's a little tough with the colors, but one of the things that I'm very proud of is as we've had developments, Mrs. Weber, myself, previous administrators, and now Mrs. Logan will be involved in those conversations. We have really made an effort to communicate on behalf of the board that we've limited the number of multi-bedroom units that they can put in. Because if we continue to see multi-unit or multi-bedroom units, it's going to increase our students. So we don't want large apartment complexes really offsetting our enrollment process or our enrollment projections, because we built based on what we projected we thought we would have and with the current developments that we know about. So we did hear about a development in Sims Township that actually ended up not happening. It was going to be right across the highway, right past CHCA. It's a horrible location. I'm not sure who would want to live in an apartment over there, but that was where one was slotted to go. But we didn't hear about it until a very last second. So
I had a meeting today and it's,
is it back on?
it's back on, but they're being told that it's senior apartments.
And Mr. Lewis, we're also seeing that there are some corporate real estate that is being converted into apartments as well. And so we are specifically watching, obviously, Blue Ash, because that's the majority of our corporate real estate. But we have noticed that there is one specific up near Sims, up in the Governor's Hill, that was just converted to an apartment complex. But those, to your point, are one bedroom and a half type situations. So
How are you able to influence that?
Well, because the board would have to approve any tax incentives that they might want. So we would have to come back to you, and I would say anything that would have a large amount of 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, we would not be very interested in helping you out with their tax incentives, because that would be costly to our taxpayers. So, great question. All right, public school enrollment, next slide.
Yes, sure. Just keep it very.
Oh, very, development in Montgomery. You talked about Blue Ash. I'm just wondering if you have.
The Montgomery, the price point of the Montgomery development plus same thing, the lack of like multi-bedroom. It's pretty minimal. I think they, if I remember correctly, the development in Montgomery has less than, I want to say 6 2-bedroom efficiencies. Everything else is like bedroom and a half, which what they're trying to get is the young corporate business people that travel downtown to live in Montgomery.
What about the new, I can't think of the name of the new area in Montgomery? There are apartments there and there are condos.
That's the one.
Yep. Sorry.
No, you're right on
Montgomery Quarter. Yeah, it's Montgomery Quarter.
Yeah. Montgomery.
All right, public school enrollment, state of Ohio is in a long-term decline, and you can see that Sycamore is not in that. We're in the increased enrollment. So I'm glad that we are not correlated currently with the state of Ohio on that one. So next slide is our enrollment. Looking at it, key takeaways, we're steadily increasing over the last decade. Sycamore's preschool through 4th grade, we're at an all-time high this year. High school is starting to climb off of its lows, and obviously as our students work through our system, that makes a lot of sense. So I do think towards the end of our enrollment forecast, we will get close to that 6404, if not slightly surpass it. So skip that. We already talked about that one. So kindergarten enrollment, this gives you the 5-year projection of what our kindergarten enrollment should look like over the next 5 years. So again, we collect birth records, we project their attendance forward for 5 years, and that helps us kind of understand how many students are eligible to enroll. And look at that number and try to make our best decisions that we can. Kindergarten students are projected to remain elevated for the first half of the forecast and then decline towards the district's historical average. In our next slide, we call these our kindergarten red shirts. I had one. My oldest son was a kindergarten red shirt, and these are the ones that maybe they're just not ready for kindergarten. So it's, they take an extra year of preschool or just to get prepared. A lot of times it's emotionally and socially for kindergarten. So the trend is it's slightly increasing over percentage of our kindergarten enrollment with slightly elevated levels over the past 6 years. Average since 2018, 17% versus the historical average of 15% prior to that. Next parameter, graduating seniors. You can see that we're doing a great job of graduating our seniors since recording a low in 2017. Our four-year graduation rate in the district has climbed back to its historical average, and it's pretty highly predictable about our graduation rate. Net migration, key parameter. Yep, sorry for the really large chart, but a lot of data up there. Historical net migration is used to supplement recent data trends to identify, again, our net migration. So green is good, red is not good. So we certainly pay attention to those numbers and try to find out reasons why we might have a negative net migration. Next slide. Net migration trend. Key observations, the primary or elementary schools are steadily add students in grades K to 6. Grades 7 and 8 have seen a gradual decline in net migration over the decades, but it remains positive. The high school have recorded higher than average negative net migration over the most recent decade. So again, that's something we want to see why are we having more net migration negativity at our high school? So something to pay attention to. It's a busy slide. Key observation here is just a general increasing trend in our net migration since 2020, which means a little more transiency, a little more movement. New building construction, you can see the various schools. The 4-year moving average is in the of net migration. So focus on the red parentheses, you can see the elevated bump of positive net migration at Blue Ash and then a similar one at Mapledale. Obviously, if you look at the trend, when we saw the bump at Mapledale, what happened during that time? We built Mapledale. So makes sense. If you build it, they will come. Next slide, Montgomery and Sims. Again, what did we recently just do at Montgomery? Or Sims? We just renovated. If you build it, they will come. So we are seeing a bump in our enrollment, obviously, since the recent construction at Sims. So that's why we asked you for the boundary realignment. Next slide, that's just our GIS system that we use for this process. We have a tool that was built to assist us with this analysis. And again, it identifies every home in the district. So very helpful in forecasting. So I'll just say that we had 9 different models that we ran on enrollment forecasts. So we're not going to cover all 9 of those tonight. So keep on going. So there's each one individually now. Blue Ash Elementary, this is the one that, we'll just have to keep an eye on. They're going to border that 600 number by the end of their 5-year period. So again, just something to keep an eye on. But right now, I do believe with the current size of the building, we can sustain that number. But then on this flip side, and Blue Ash has a little more transient population. They have more apartment complexes. They have more affordable housing. Move forward to the next slide, Mapledale. Why would we see a decline? Because people aren't moving out of Mapledale. They're not moving out. Some of the new families that have moved in are not, and when their kids go through elementary, they're not moving out of the district. So that's why you would see that trend. So Mapledale is on a downward trend towards 500 by 28-29. Next slide, Montgomery. You can see now this was prior to us doing boundary realignment. So that's, if you saw, we were going to be close to that 485 students by 28-29. Obviously, that will not hold true. And then why did we start a lot of this process? The next slide, Sims Elementary, you can see without preschool, ballooning up above 700 was the concern. People are already feeling those pressures. I think going up to that number would feel an extreme pressure at that building. Next slide, EH Green, relatively high enrollment right now. And then we did build for that capacity, which I'm very thankful for, that we projected this out and built for that capacity. Right after this 5-year forecast, we do believe that trend will start a downward trend. So next slide, junior high, same trend, which makes sense. If big classes are going through green, they go through junior high. So they'll rise for a little bit and again, leveling off. Then our high school, obviously, if those kids are coming through, then we'll see an increase and it'll be close to that 2,000 mark, which will be great. Our high school is large enough to handle that. And again, you can see we've renovated the entire high school, but you can see the high school has not the whole physical structure of 300,000 plus square feet has not changed. And in the 90s, it was over 2,000. And Clint, you may remember this, all the restrictive locker bays everywhere. Those don't exist anymore. They're not there. A lot of classrooms, a lot of space. Nobody used them anyway, Clint.
That's right. Never remember the combination.
And then our district enrollment, you can see the trend and where we're headed. And like we said, really close back to that peak number. So we'll be close to 6,300. We're gonna skip that slide. So key takeaways here, Sims Elementary will remain inflated. Obviously, with our enrollment or our realignment, that's going to be affected, and I appreciate your consideration for that. So you can see the impact of boundary realignment and how that really pushes the schools back closer together, and you can see why I want to keep an eye on Blue Ash, because it's trending just a little higher than the rest, but nothing to be alarmed about at this point. You can see the proposed elementary zone map now with the realignment in it. And that was something that we studied during that process. Next slide. Sycamore's enrollments is experiencing a reacceleration enrollment. It's a lower rate, but it'll continue to increase over our forecast period. So it'll be interesting as we get into the next forecast period. What are we going to see in that next 5-year trend? So next slide. We're going to skip over that conclusion. We'll skip over that conclusion. Go right to recommendation, which, part of our recommendation coming out of the enrollment was to adopt the boundary realignment, which we've already done. And then we just need to maintain that GIS system because this is a lot of work and a lot of time that goes into this. I do think it will help us long-term if we continue to keep it up every year, and it'll give us better data, not only to predict staffing, but to predict, changes and movements around the district. So it's a very low cost comparative to all the data that we get out of it. So we will continue to do that. So, all right. I don't think I have anything else. Any questions? I know that was a lot. I still think I may have made 30 minutes.
You did. I'm very proud of you.
I know.
I think it's great data, and I think that it's very useful in order for us, like you said, to be able to use that as a predictive tool for staffing, for everything we need to do to make sure we're providing the best education possible for our children. So I would highly encourage that, we continue doing it as long as we are using the data.
The part that I would like to go back and look at some point is the multiplier page. And just get some more information about how do we compare with other school districts? What impact does that have? Because if we have, if that multiplier effect is showing a difference, telling us a different story, we have to also be prepared, prepare the district for that as well, right? With our staffing and with everything, really.
Yeah.
Anybody? Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you very much. That was very detailed and helpful. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is a review of the first reading.
So yeah, we do not have a first read on here, so we'll just have the second read for you this evening.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna move to the next item, which is the approval of policy second read. Which we read we read this as a first read for the last meeting. Can I get a motion and a second for the approval of policy second read?
I move.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Harris, for your motion and Dr. James for your second. So Mrs. Logan, does anyone have any edits, changes,
No.
questions? Okay, Mrs. Logan, please call the roll.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Dr. James.
Aye.
Mr. Ballant.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye. The next item on the agenda is the approval to waive the second reading and adopt policy GCPCA revisions effective January 1st, 2024. Can I get a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ballant, for your motion, and thank you, Mr. Harris, for your second. Mrs. Logan, please call the roll.
Mr. Ballant.
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Dr. James.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye. We have other.
Yeah, just really quickly, essence of time, Eugene Harney, two-time state champion. We will try, since our May meetings are at the high school, I think we're gonna be able to try to set something up in the hub. Yeah, so we'll try to get Eugene there and do something special for him, because that's pretty special, two-time back-to-back state championships. Boys basketball, district runner-up, and it was tough watching. But two of our players, Samuel Amade is second team all GMC, and Raleigh Burgess was GMC Player of the Year. And Tim Austin was Coach of the Year, which kudos to all of them. I will bring you a very comprehensive, I asked Kyle to put it together today. Mr. Smith works in our athletic department. He's gonna put together a whole summary of just the successes of all of our athletes. And it's amazing, because I picked some of these things up from different places, but we had divers and you've heard me mention all of them before, but I want to do it all at once, a summary, because I think it's pretty impressive when you see what our students have done. But I got a couple other groups of impressive students. We have multiple robotics teams, if you weren't aware. So one group, the Mockbusters, were in Knoxville, Tennessee. They were the top 3 finalists for the coveted Inspire Award. They also, one of their members got the Dean's Award. They also got the Team Spirit Award. There were 12 awards for 33 teams, and the team got 2 of them. They're also very proud of the fact that they have spent 1,200 hours on the robot, which is incredible. But they also spend hundreds of hours mentoring younger teams at Green and at the elementary school. So kudos to our Mockbusters team, which they also have an Instagram account. Mallory, I'm feeling a little bit, my Instagram account definitely is not this strong. They have 2 million unique individuals following.
Wow.
Over 6 million views. I'm like,
Wow.
I can't even get 20 likes.
They are.
They're killing it. The only time I got that many was a snow day. So, and then
Need more snow days.
Yeah, the weather.
And then the other robotics, one of the other robotics teams, Juniper Robotics, went undefeated at the state tournament. March 9th, I got to go to Troy, Ohio to see them. I was present for part of their competition. It's a long day, but they are now advancing to the World Championship in Houston, Texas in April.
That's awesome.
So the district will give them support for that. They are really excited about this because they are ranked in the top 25 out of 7,000 teams in the world. So last year, to give you context, how they're feeling, they were in the top 300 and they finished 14. Their expectation is pretty high. In here, they say, we think we can win it.
Yeah.
So it'd be pretty cool to have a world champion. So special shout out to Sean Chan, Tom Hess, Kim Jarvis, And then on the mock busters, Ryan Shillington, these guys, they volunteer a lot of time and I'm guessing a lot of money to support these young people to build these robots. And when I asked the kids from Juniper, like, how long did this take to build? They're like a week. What? Like, I can't even build a grill in a week. Building robots. So that's all I have today.
Well, thank you very much. That's very impressive. The next item on the agenda is our personnel consent agenda. Can I get a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ballant, for your motion. Thank you, Dr. James, for the second. Mrs. Logan, please call the roll.
Mr. Ballant.
Aye.
Dr. James.
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye. The next item is the treasurer's agenda. Audit update for fiscal year ended in June 30th, 2023.
So just to make you aware, this process takes a little while. We had the post-audit conference a few months ago, where we had the ability to listen to the audit team and they answered questions, talked to us about recommendations. And so I put the link on board docs as well for any community member who wants to see the audit. There were no citations, so it was a good audit. And it's shared now and it is a public document and it has been released. That's what the term that they use for the auditor's office. That's it.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all your hard work.
Yes, thanks to you and your entire staff
Yeah,
for
thank
all the
you.
work on it. It's a big undertaking.
It is.
I'll say a kudos to Mrs. Weber because this was during the time that she was the treasurer. So this would be her last official audit and it was a clean one. So good job.
The next item is, can I get a motion to approve the monthly financial report for the month ended February 29, 2024?
I move.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Harris, for your motion. Thank you, Dr. James, for your second.
I just want to mention just a few things that are different this time on the revenue and the expenditure slides. I added operating revenue, Mr. Ballant. And operating expenditures so that you can clearly see and this transfers and advances are not confusing those numbers. So I did add that this time.
Thank you.
Have
Great
any
information. Thank you.
questions? Mrs. Logan, can you please call the roll?
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Dr. James.
Aye.
Mr. Ballant.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye. Can I get a motion and a second for the approval of summer school tuition rates?
So moved.
Second.
No increase.
No increase
From last year. Mr. Ballant.
Aye.
Dr. James.
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye. Can I get a motion and a second for the approval of donations?
I move.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Harris, for your motion. Thank you, Mr. Ballot, for your second. Thank you for the donations. I always want to say that every time. Thank you.
Yes. Absolutely.
Mrs. Logan, please call the roll.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Mr. Ballant.
Aye.
Dr. James.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye. Thank you. The next item of the agenda is other board business. And the first item up is the Blue Ash Sister City trip. And I'm gonna let you go ahead and just talk about it if you don't mind.
Sure.
Mr. Lewis.
So
And I have the date. I printed out I don't have the dates in front of you. I have them here.
So Blue Ash takes a trip to their sister city. It's Ilmenau, Germany. And Mrs. Harrington reached out to ask me to attend. I have young kids and I just can't take a week and go to Germany. I think it would be amazing. I've never been out of the country, so I would welcome the opportunity, but I can't even barely get them out of bed to go to school in the morning. So I don't feel like that's probably a good use of my time, but September 9th through the 16th, they have a delegation and it's a really great situation because the city takes care of, some of the costs and then Ilmenau takes care of the rest. So it's really just a representative from Sycamore schools to represent. And this year, so last time Mrs. Weber went because she was supposed to go the time before, but COVID took care of that trip. So, and the last time would have been a great one because it was all focused on education. This time, it's really focused on manufacturing. So again, if there's I think they would welcome, really, if anyone from the board has an interest. I checked with the team. I didn't see any overwhelming interest. I tried to get these people that, have older kids that might want to jump out and do that, but
Yeah,
I didn't get any sense.
So I just want to say that, if this is, we have a board meeting for this, during this week. I would like one of you potentially to attend. I think it would be great. I know, Mr. Harris, you also heard about this at the same time that I did. I would,
We do not have.
oh, we don't, I thought we had one.
That would be the second Wednesday.
Oh, it's the second one, so we don't. Okay, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
you'll be free and clear there.
Okay, well, then you're free and clear. Free and clear. But either way,
So is there
I think
any-
what we should do
is
is
there-
maybe have a conversation. I'm gonna take
Yeah.
myself out of the running, but
Is there any concern from an ethics standpoint, or do we need to check in with
That's right.
OSBA?
yeah, because we're not allowed to
This
receive
is
money.
this would be a gift.
Yeah, it would be. Yep.
Uh,
So as board members, actually
I would just advise before we decide that a board member is going to go, that we talk to the OSBA legal team. So that we clear that.
I mean, technically, any public employee, when we receive money, that's the case. So.
I don't know how they define it,
The
but
board and any employee technically, yeah, so we'll do that. But I think that we're all here, everyone hears this, let's amongst us, I will check in with you, I can do that. I can be the one to check with them. But then if you have an interest, then just email me individually and let me know if you have an interest, and then we'll figure it out. And I'm just gonna be the point person, I'm not gonna.
just from a question, this is at no cost to the district.
That is correct.
Yes.
It is no cost.
The
to
city and Ilmenau.
You would be a representative of.
You're just a
Sycamore
delegate.
schools.
I just want to make sure for the community, as we're talking about,
Yes.
that we're very clear that this is not a cost to the district.
Yep,
That's correct.
you would be a
That's correct.
delegate for their
And you
continued.
would be representing the educator, the education system of Sycamore schools there. And the topic is manufacturing, but you would be bringing that to the table.
And if there isn't a board member that's interested, we can certainly look at teaching staff that might be interested, especially if there's some connection to manufacturing.
But I'll be the point person to check with the Ohio School Board Association and ask them if there's anything we have to do or we can do. And then I'll get back to you, Mr. Lewis.
That'd be
That
great.
sounds good.
Thank you for
And if you
considering.
have anything with me, if you're interested, please let me know. Okay, the next item is the SAC update. Dr. James.
The Sycamore Advisory Commission held its meeting on March 11th, and we spent a lot of time, the majority of the meeting, speaking with Lori Sando, who is leading focus groups throughout the district. And so she was targeting the Sycamore Advisory Commission and getting their input in terms of the kinds of things they'd like to see going into the next strategic plan for the district. The group was very engaged, and they offered some valuable insights on where our focus should be in the future. There was a lot of discussion about communication and how the district can be more helpful to parents, including suggestions such as having a seminar for parents on how to handle conflicts, in other words, conflict management. There was a suggestion of more clarification on who to turn to when there's a concern, and a request for the district to be more transparent with its communication to squelch any rumors that we're hiding bad news. So the group was really engaged. And they were encouraged to go on the website and complete a survey. just to give any additional information that they might have thought about after the meeting or that they were unwilling to say in the meeting. And the survey, I believe, shuts down March the 31st for all groups to give additional input. There are 14 applicants who are interested in becoming members of the advisory commission. So that's great news to know that people want to be engaged with the commission and with the district. They also asked any current members if they were interested in becoming officers for the commission next year. The positions opened are the presidency, vice president, and recording secretary. No decisions were made on either one of those things at that time. We'll hear from the 3 remaining projects coming up in April and May. And our next meeting is April the 8th. One of the things that happens in the commission is that we go around the circle, anybody who has any information from any of the groups that are represented in the commission. And the city of Blue Ash representative was at the meeting last time, but I just want to mention, and as a reminder, that the Blue Ash Memorial Day Parade is May the 27th at 10:15 a.m. And I'm hoping that the board and anyone else who's interested will participate.
Always a good event.
Great place to
Usually we
present the
receive,
district.
email, the board will receive an email. And
So put that on your calendar.
absolutely.
Lovell girls will be there throwing candy.
Very good.
They're very good at it.
They're good at that.
Thank you for that update. That was excellent. Anyone, any questions or additions? All right, next item, last but not least, legislative update, Mr. Bowen.
Yeah, so there is not a lot to update because the Senate and the House had no scheduled session days in all of March. Must be nice, but the property tax reform committee continues to meet. And the school groups will have the opportunity to testify in front of the committee the week of April 10th. So that will continue to watch. And then the only thing that I saw that was really of note for us is Senate Bill 104 did pass the Senate, and it's a CCP reform would require cost sharing for the universities to share some of the fees associated with textbooks that aren't considered free.
All right.
Can you explain for the community what the CCP is?
You can do a better job than me.
CCP is a college credit plus, and it allows our Sycamore students to earn concurrent credit, both high school credit and college credit. So it's an extraordinary opportunity for our students to participate both in the high school with some CCP classes and for opportunities to take courses off campus on college and university campuses. So again, just an amazing opportunity for our students. There is costs incurred with it, including the cost of textbooks, which, as anyone who has college students knows, is significant. And this is such proud news. We have had a dramatic increase in the number of college credit plus courses that students have taken over the course of the past year or two. And that also means that we've had quite a bump in the costs associated with that as well.
Because currently the district is footing the bill for all of that, correct?
As I'll say,
Yes, the books included.
I would say, when I'm listening to Dean Leitner over at UC Blue Ash, they are not excited about this legislation.
Can imagine, because they will have to bear the cost.
Right, because the
Yeah.
birdhouse on us right
Yeah.
now.
Right. All right, thank you, everyone. Meeting adjourned. I have to say it, right?
If you don't say it, it doesn't.